the strategy of the company. With that, let's also summarize the day one, where we had several panel discussions and where we had really privilege to hear many speakers, including Troy Leach, Anil Johri, and few others. And the cherry on the top was evening networking cruise. Now, let's start with the day two. The agenda for day two is basically, we're going to start with Nitin Bhatnagar from PCI Standards Council, followed by Biju John with the updates on payment ecosystem with the security standards, and later Afi Merchant will guide us through the US FedRAMP and CMMC compliance. Ricardo Pardo will close the conference with the crucial insights into managing service provider risk using SOC standards. I encourage you to maintain the same level of engagement and enthusiasm as we witnessed yesterday. So with that, what I'll do is I'll just start with our today's first session, which is from Nitin Bhatnagar. Let me, before I call upon Nitin, let me quickly introduce Nitin. Nitin is the Regional Director for India, Southeast Asia, and the Middle East at PCI Security Council. In his role, he has been instrumental in helping organizations navigate the complex intersections of innovation and security. His extensive experience and deep understanding of both regional dynamic and global standards make him the perfect guide for today's discussion on payment security in Middle East, securing new emerging technologies with PCI standards. So, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mr. Nitin Bhatnagar, Regional Director for India, Southeast Asia, Middle East, and Peace at PCI Security Standard Council. Thank you.
Very good morning. I think we have a... Can we just do once more? Good morning. Good morning. I think this is a good start for the day. Thank you, Satya. Thank you, Controlcase, for inviting PCI Security Standard Council to speak to you, to your customers, on what's happening in the world of PCI. And I have privilege here today with Troy Leach sitting here, who has been one of the writers for the standards of PCI, and I'm presenting in front of him. Hopefully, please ignore if I make some mistakes. With that, let me start with talking about what's happening, who we are. First, the PCI Security Standard Council has been founded in 2006, and this is going somewhere else. Okay. So the PCI Security Standard Council has been founded in 2006. It's a global forum for payment card industry security standards. What we do is we develop the standards, we manage standards, we do education, we create awareness around the standards of PCI. We have been founded by the 5 major payment brands, which is Visa, MasterCard, Amex, JCB, and Discover. And we also have our strategic member, which is UnionPay, who have joined us a couple of years back. Talking about what we do, we help secure the global payment data with the payment security standards and the resources that are industry-driven. We are forward-looking and also collaborative, where we get a lot of inputs which you're going to talk about through the presentation in a few slides. Talking about the regional involvement, as you can see on the screen, we have 109 licensed QSAs operating in the region. We have 28 participating organizations, and thank you for the efforts, for the support that you have given to PCI in last 1 year since I took up this role last year in April. I think it's less than a year. But we have really grown our numbers when it comes to the participating organization. We have 22 internal security SSS companies, and we have close to 151 PCIP professionals. So this is what the regional engagement looks like, and we are trying to grow. These numbers would need your all support to help us get engaged with the council to help evolve the standards of PCI. Talking about the PCI affiliates, we have Al Etihad Payments, who has recently joined us as an affiliate member with the PCI Security Standard Council. They are a subsidiary of the Central Bank of UAE. We have Saudi Payments from Middle East, who have been serving the PCI as a board of advisor as well, and helping us, help us in improving our standards. And more importantly, they all are our principal participating organization. And this is the new program that we launched a couple of years back. And we have seen a real great response from these organizations helping us strategize and take decisions for the next course of action for the future of payments. Okay, let me come back to the Middle East digital payment landscape. And that's what Suresh has asked me, that I should focus on the last 1 year that I have been spending some time in Middle East. And let me talk about the digital payment landscape in the Middle East is definitely growing. We are seeing new forms of payments picking up. We are seeing the QR code-based payments. We are seeing the open banking. We are seeing a lot of new contactless payments which are picking up. And moreover, the engagement that we are having with the regulators have been really very, very encouraging. And it's just not about UAE. I have traveled to Kuwait, I have traveled to Qatar, I have traveled to Saudi, I have traveled to Oman, and I have traveled to Bahrain. And I have been meeting all the stakeholders of the PCI including the regulators. And I think the education that we are trying to impart to the regulators around the standards and the support that we were getting from them has been really, really encouraging. And more importantly, when we talk about the payment landscape, yes, definitely it's growing, and they all would need the support from entire payment industry to help them secure the payment data. We will talk about it. I think we have a panel discussion after this. If you have any questions around that, would be happy to answer. Moving on to the next slide, talking about the cybersecurity regulations in Middle East. I think we all know there are certain regulations that have come, and they have been talked about, the standards of PCI, they have been referenced, and the good part is the education, the awareness that we are able to give it back to the industry is helping understand the importance of adopting the standards of PCI. And it's just not the standards, the training. We are talking about the PCIP training, we are talking about the PCI ISAs. We have seen a lot of positive response from the region where we have seen the PCI ISAs numbers going up as well. And as we talk, there are things that are happening which will definitely help us grow these numbers in the region, and I would really need all your support. And I'm going to talk more about the PCI ISA and the PCIPs, because that way you can internally build your own ecosystem to help yourself in terms of the implementation of the standards of PCI. And we always talk about working with the trusted partners. And I think that's one of the thumb rule that we have always been kept in our mind and help educate the stakeholders, that you need to work with the trusted partners, whether it's a QSA or the PCIPs or the ISAs, or even the software that are listed on the PCI Security Standard Council website. These resources are freely available. You can go to the PCI Security Standard Council website and have access to this information. And while you are choosing any product solution, if they are listed, it helps you, building the trust within the ecosystem. And this is a slide which has been for long, and I think I presented this in my last year's session as well, and we have been keeping it. We have 15 PCI security standards today, and these standards that you see on the screen, we have the entire ecosystem that we talk about, the issuers, the consumers, the merchants, service providers, the vendors, solution providers, and issuers. These are the standards that are being created by the PCI Security Standard Council, but the compliance to these standards are still being managed by the payment brands, which is Visa, MasterCard, Amex, JCB, and Discover. Now, these standards that you see on the screen, we have recently added the contactless payments on mobile payments on cards, which is MPOC standard, which is a new addition to this, and we have recently also updated the new version, version 1.1 of the MPOC standard. And also we have released some guidance to the industry. If if you want to really pick up on the MPOC lab, we have relaxed the requirements where you don't need to be a PTS lab now, but you can also apply for the MPOC directly. And this is one of the requirement, one of the way that you can again engage with the PCI Security Standard Council. And these standards, what you see on the screen, are as on date. Probably we are still working with the industry stakeholders to see what next is stored for the payment industry and how we are going to evolve these standards going forward. Talking about what yesterday Troy already has touched point is the AI and its nuances and also how it's going to look like with the cloud. But from the PCI, from the payments perspective, again, I don't want to repeat it. What it says that from deepfakes and disinformation to hacks, and attack on infrastructure, healthcare, and security, cybercrime is becoming the #1 challenge for law enforcement and intelligence agencies. And the artificial intelligence is already changing the game. In fact, let me tell you one story. Yesterday, day before yesterday, we have in India, how many are from India? Okay. So you know all that India is going through a Mahakumbh, which is a very religious stuff that is happening in India. And I got a call from a journalist, and he asked me, I know you come from a payment industry, but the UP government and the UP police is actually have implemented an AI-based cameras to track the number of people coming to the Mahakumbh. How many of you agree will AI be able to track it? Yes or no? Only one hand. Yes? Okay. Okay. So you see the intensity of the AI now. The AI has been used in every small thing. And what it means is that the rise of artificial intelligence, we don't know the impact today. We don't know how it's going to impact every one of us. But yes, there is definitely a rise in artificial intelligence. And we need something which is going to help us in securing our payments as well. And I think Troy yesterday taken a very simple example of the penetration test. In fact, that was just blown my mind completely. And I think the way the AI is picking up is just next level. And I think the traditional uses of AI has been in the payment industry is the data analysis. We talk about the large inputs of data. We talk about the short response time, the spot anomalies, and also the indicator of fraud. So these are the traditional uses of artificial intelligence in the payment industry that we have been seeing. But the future impact, we don't know. Do we have an answer to the future impact of the AI? Can we say this is what the impact it's going to bring to the industry? The answer may be no. According to me, it's no. We really cannot have a conclusion on what the impact is going to look like. But PCI Security Standard Council has released last year a guidance to the industry on the consideration that you should take if you're implementing the AI. One of them is first is the data security. Assess how your AI manages sensitive information and impact the compliances. Having an expert review on validate the generative AI output for the security and accuracy. Regular checks on monitoring the AI output consistency over time and also the legal compliances. You need to make sure that your AI aligns with the legal standards. Lastly, having a proper understanding on AI, you have to understand how this AI is going to complement on the AI operations and update the processes. You need to also update, I think, which beautifully Troy yesterday covered in his presentation, the way it should look like, what exactly the check and balances that you need to take while you are implementing the AI in your systems, in your organizations. So using AI-based systems, I think these are the few considerations from the PCI Security Standard Council for the payments data protection, what you should be taking care of. And I think more importantly, I think we always keep educating our stakeholders on some threats, which is the social engineering and the phishing. I think these are the threats which are still prominent, the ransomware attacks. And I think as we move forward, as we talk about it tomorrow, this is going to be an ongoing trend for the AI is going to be the buzzword for long, not for long, I would say, at least for some time, and we are going to be seeing a lot of new stuff, lot of new guidance, a lot of new things which are going to come up. And more importantly, the PCI standards also talk about the emerging threats, including the phishing, social engineering, and the ransomware attacks. And I think PCI DSS version 4.0x has been really flexible on those requirements and ensuring that the industry adopt these standard requirements to protect the payment data. Moving on to the next on the steps on your journey to PCI DSS version 4.0.x. I'm sure this is the timeline which we have been talking about, and we are just quickly approaching the 31st March 2025 for the future dated new requirements to become effective. And if you have not started it, please do so, because we are just close. I think we just another 1.5 months close to that specific date. And you need any support, you have the QSAs. I think Controlcase the QSAs would be able to help you in going through these requirements, the best practices that will become the actual requirements of the standard. And one more thing that I just want to talk about on the implementation is the scope. Understanding the scope is very, very critical, and I think the requirement number 12.5.2 that talks about the PCI DSS scope is documented and confirmed by the entity at least once every 12 months. And the important line, what I'm going to talk about, is upon significant change to the in-scope environment. That's a critical and a potential PCI DSS scope looks like. I don't want to get into the details, but this is how the potential PCI DSS scope would look like. But more importantly, if you make any changes to your environment, you need to ensure that you get the scoping done completely. And every 12 months, definitely you have to do it. Talking about transitioning from version 3.2.1 to version 4.x, because I'm mentioning X, don't get confused between 4.0 or 4.0.1. It's 4.x because this version may change, so we are just trying to keep the same messaging for the industry stakeholders as well to understand, so that we don't get confused when we are talking about 4.0 or 4.0.1. So talking about the defined approach, version 4.0.1, not hard as was thought. So I think it's simple. We have not made major changes. It's just minor few tweaks that we have made to the standard. We are talking about the enabling the ROC requirements, the report on compliance, record the scope of review. The future data requirements, again, has been little tweaked, understanding the FDR compliance gaps, identify the implementation lead times, and understand the budget allocations, and definitely the proactive approach maintaining the PCI compliance. These are the aspects that we have got covered. And also, while you are transitioning from version 3.2.1 to 4.0 or 1 or X, I think these are the things that you need to take in mind. I think defined approach and the customized approach is the two validation options that we have given back to the industry to evaluate which works best for you. And I think if we are talking about this, won't get into the details, but these are the things that you need to take care of while you're transitioning from the older version to the newer version. So what has changed to version 4.x is we have 64 new requirements that has got introduced. 13 are effective immediately. We have 51 future date requirements. We have existing requirements. We have removed or merged them. We have renumbered, reworded, and reorganized few other requirements. On the 4.0.1 changes to the validation document, we have updated the 4.0 self-assessment questionnaire, which is SAQ. We have added few new requirements. Again, added the few existing and removed or merged the requirements, and updated the AOC, and also updated the templates for the version 4.0 report on compliance. So that's how the future dated requirements will clearly be stated in the standard. If you see the applicability notes down straight, so this is what it would say against the requirement. This requirement applies only when an entity being assessed is a service provider, and also it talks about the applicability of the future dated requirement. So we have also added another area, which is the guidance, where you can see the purpose of the specific requirement that you want to meet. You have to understand that and get the implementation done accordingly. As I move forward towards, there are different ways that you can engage with PCI Security Standard Council, and the one of those, I think, is the participating organizations. The community is grown. Our community is close to 700 plus, and I think these numbers are growing. And definitely, we would need your support to get engaged with the council, contribute to the standards by engaging and collaborating with us. And I think one of the ways that we have the levels of participation, we have individuals, anyone can be a member to the council. We have associate, which has been very successful program that we have been doing. We have increasing these numbers in the Middle East and in fact in India and South Asia as well. In fact, Troy would remember when I started with the PCI Security Standard Council, we just had 0 stakeholders in India and South Asia. And those numbers today in India, South Asia has got to 30. We have one principal participating organization. And in Middle East, when I took up this last year, we just had 15. This number has gone to 28. So we, again, PCI Security Standard Council will look forward to your support. If you want to really know more about these labels, I'm all out here. We can talk about it. In fact, I just had some discussion yesterday with few, but I would be happy to talk more about how you can engage with the council and help us support the payments. This is what is, we need your voice. We need your expertise, and we need your participation. That's how, if we work in collaboration, we would be able to help secure the payment data. The PCI resources are all freely available. You can take, these are the QR codes to different standards, the FAQs, and the PCI perspective blog. PCI perspective blog gives you a lot of content from the industry. We have done a lot of industry stakeholders interaction where we talk about what's happening in the space of the payments, the new emerging technologies, and whatnot. So these are the go-to resources for you. These are freely available. Please scan them if you are, or take a picture of the screen, and go to the PCI Security Standard Council website, which is pcissc.org resource hub, where you can get all these information ready for your reference to have a better understanding on what we are talking. Save the date. This is the upcoming community meetings happening, 2025. North America is happening on 16 to 18 September in Texas. We have European community meeting happening on 14 to 16 October in Amsterdam. That's the two updates that I have for you for now. We will be updating more about our yearly events on our yearly calendar that we have on the PCI Security Standard Council website. With that, my last request to everyone would be, if you're looking at making the standards more robust, influence the standards from the region, your region, please get involved with the PCI. Get involved, come forward, and we will help you out the ways to get more engaged with the PCI Security Standard Council. Thank you very much. Thank you again for inviting me to speak and share those few areas that we are working on, and looking forward to working with you in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you, Nitin. Thank you for updating us on PCI Standard Council's updates as well as the standards. Now, we are going to continue this with a panel discussion. And for the same, first of all, I want you to take a seat as you are one of the panel members. I would like to invite the moderator for this panel, Mr. Ashish Oja, Vice President with Controlcase, handling the banking and all other type of certifications for Asia Pacific region. Ashish.
Thank you, Satya. Thank you, Nitin. Namaste, salam, good morning, everyone. And I hope I don't have to do the exercise what Nitin has done, the good morning exercise, because Nitin, you did a very good presentation, and everybody were really involved with that. So we'll start the panel discussion, and we have the respected panel members today, Mr. David Anton from Tally Digital Payment. He is a Chief Risk and Compliance Officer. He is having 16 years of experience, and he helped his organization to get 3 PCI DSS certificate, PCI certification, PCI DSS, PIN, and 3DS. Welcome, David. Now, our next panel member, Mr. Prabhakar, Akila V.S. Prabhakar. He is a Chief Risk and Compliance Officer for Zeta. And if you see, he is having 30 years of experience in this field, a very well-known face in this industry. Welcome, Mr. Prabhakar. And I don't have to give the next panel member brief because we just hear him out. It's a very familiar face from PCI DSS Council, Mr. Nitin Bhatnagar. All right. So from yesterday, we all are hearing about the new technologies, mainly to AI, right? So I would like to ask this question to all the panel members, and I would like to start with you because this is something, the emerging technologies in Middle East. So Mr. David, how do you see the new technologies are evolving in Middle East in terms of, mainly if I name it, the mobile wallet and the other, like tap and pay, right? How do you see that, how it is actually, covering the Middle East market?
Hello, good morning, everyone. Pleasure to be with you all and with the esteemed panel. I see that with the emerging technologies and the ease of use for customers and end users, it's more convenient and more helpful and improving the payment experience overall. But it also introduces more risks and more emphasis on the need to comply with these standards. One of which, of course, is the PCI DSS, and we have actually recently have been certified for the V4. It was a great journey. And what I can say is that it puts more emphasis and responsibility on the people accountable for the compliance in each company to be sure that they are compliant. I want to quote something that Troy said actually yesterday regarding the compliance and the breaches. And when we investigate a certain breach or something, we can see that we can reach that conclusion that there have been a non-compliance at a certain technology or a certain place. So with the increase of technology, we need to ensure that we are really compliant and that we are going into further lenses of details at each point that we have the security controls implemented in the right way at each point.
Thank you. One interesting story Mr. Troy has mentioned, and I think everybody has picked that. Thank you. So my next question is actually related to it, and that is to you, Mr. Prabhakar. How do you see that the industry is ready, to handle such risk which we are, like the story which he has mentioned about it, right? How this AI things are going in the market, and are we really ready to, handle such risk which is having with AI or any new technologies? Because, unless until it is very familiar to everyone, when you actually implement, then you see the actual risk with it, right? Are we really ready for it?
Thank you, Controlcase, for having me here. And yeah, whatever I'm going to talk are my personal and standard disclaimer I wanted to give. And with respect to the technologies, let us take a step back. Any technology we wanted to introduce to reduce the friction increase the user experience, and then we will help them give trust and increase the business from a business perspective. So this is the objective. To give that, a lot of technologies we use and emerging technologies. If you say the payment ecosystem from physical card to where we are today, so QR code-based payments are happening, tap and pay is happening, contactless, wallet, various ways the delivery is happening and frictionless payments are happening. And the associated risks always envisaged whenever any new technology is introduced. And we can adapt from best practices. Also, we can take a bespoke approach, and based on the industry we are in, based on the use case at hand, and you take AI example, there are a lot of regulations are coming, and nothing like a global kind of a thing, but a regional level, geo level, AI regulations are coming, some best practices are coming, and a responsible AI is very critical, and the virtual assistants. It depends on the use case, what use case you are using that technology for what purpose. If you're talking about a customer support or a virtual assistant, then you have to look at that particular use case and what kind of data we are going to handle, what kind of support we are going to give. So analyze that and look at what is that you wanted to protect. So you should have the clear visibility of what is that you are going to do with the technology. So how do you want to implement? So what are all the various controls you have to adapt? So from a controls perspective, if you say, I strictly go by the first principles. So your basic authentication or authorization or the observability, detection, they're all very common, irrespective of your technology. But how you are using the technology and what are all the things you have to adapt for that particular technology you have to do. Similarly, in the case of a incident, because of these technologies used, if at all there is a fraud happens or if at all some breach happens, how do you respond it very quickly for those kind of scenarios? That is also very, very important. So very difficult to give a generic answer because the domain is very huge, and we have to take the case in hand and analyze it and see what technologies really under the hood we are using and apply it. But I strongly believe, and which I normally advocate or I do, is that do things by design and default. So do the POCs, take the system through, do the POCs, go step-by-step approach, CUG, launch. Of course, bring agility also along with it. So then at least you have a lot of control before we launch that service. Today with respect to the contactless payments or with respect to your wallets, if device is lost, if the RFID, if the tag is lost, or RFID skimming can happen. So then immediately, if such scenarios happens, how do we stop the payments? What kind of consumer protection is available within the consumer hands? Today he can do a lot of things. He can block the card himself. So there is a lot of customer experience available and he can protect himself. Self-service features are available. So these are all the things. And of course, awareness, and ensure that the customers or the consumers are aware of all these facilities also to protect themselves. These are all paramount.
I would like to extend this question to Mr. Nitin. You give one good example of Mahakumbh, and we both belong to the same state where Mahakumbh is happening. In terms of the risk, which basically I asked the question to Mr. Prabhakar, right? So these type of steps which governments are taking, right? You know, the AI-based CCTV cameras, right? How do you see that, you know, the risk which we have, right? I'm not sure that how truth it is and how it is working, but I just want to know that are we really ready as an organization or as a, you know, government that, you know, because, you know, things are happening like everybody's talking about AI. It's just, you know, we are going with the flow, but are we ready?
See, I think I may not be able to comment on what the government is trying to do, but what I would like to say is that we are a standards body, right? And at the end of the day, we rely on the industry stakeholders' inputs, right? And my example was largely to show that the uses of AI is growing. right? And definitely there are risks associated to it. It may be used for good, it may be used for bad, but there are uses that are happening. How we can overcome and have a standard process where we are able to protect the individual payment data or the account information. Now, from the PCI Security Standard Council point of view is, and I think Mr. Prakaku would agree, he has been an APO for a while, and you know, we have done a lot of work in terms of the RFCs. We have a request for comment process where we try to evolve our standards. We make sure that the industry gives us the right inputs. We get the right stakeholders coming and talking to us about what's next, right? And that's where the programs like PPO plays a very important role. The principal participating organization. They are the one who come and tell us, you know, what's the future looks like for the payments, the direction that we should be moving on, right? And there are discussions happening on the future of payments and the standards that we should be working, right? The screen that you see on my presentation on the 15 standards, you may see some rework on that screen as well as you move. And I think Controlcase is one of the gear member. I think this discussion has already happened on a global executive roundtable. Now, that's where we as a standards body would aim to help the industry to protect the payment data and ensure that we are having the right standards, because we alone cannot do it. We need all support from all the stakeholders sitting here, right? And if they are able to get involved with the council in some way and help us, give us a direction, that's going to help everyone, right? Just not you, me, everyone is going to get benefited. So that's what I would say. I don't want to comment on anything what's happening from the government point of view, but what we are trying to do is we are trying to seek support from the industry. We want stakeholders to come forward, join us, contribute to the standards, and give us the direction. Give us the direction, what's happening in this space, what's happening in the region. And that's what we always say. When I joined the council, and I think that then communication team from the PCI told me, we have to say how we can influence the standards from the region, right? And that's what my core remains still. And I am seeking inputs, feedback, and ensuring that, you know, we are able to give the right standards back to the industry so that it helps them protect the payment.
So the question which I asked earlier, right, the reason behind was that I would like to know that how the regulatory requirements, right, in terms of, you know, they are helping organization to go with the new technologies which we are coming, right? Because see, PCI DSS is one of the global standard, and with the new 4.0, it's very, very, you know, a nice, I would say, it's not because I'm QSA, right? Because it's really helping customer to, you know, go with the customized approach and adopt the new things, right? How do you see, that question to you, Mr. David, is that how do you see the standards from the Middle East and Gulf countries like SAMA or NESA or others, right? How does it help industry to adopt the new technologies?
Okay. I want first to reflect on a point for Mr. Nathan regarding the standards and the help from the society, which I'm from as a customer. So I want to relate on the 3DS certification. Is it having an update or a refresh coming soon? Because I see that it's a bit outdated in some points regarding the technology and the new emerging points. I can see that you have a burden to follow fast-paced technology and trends that are coming. So our hearts are with you. And going back to the question regarding the PCI DSS version 4 and its approach, I see a huge improvement there. We have recently gone through the compliance journey of it, like I mentioned, and it was actually very interesting. And the customized approach and the guidance from the standard itself is something new. And it helped us a lot to optimize our compliance and to set plans for anything that is coming and is not mandated right away, but work on and plan properly to implement. And it has been a very great one. regarding the regulators and the adoption of the standards, I see many regulators in the region, one of which is the Central Bank of Egypt, have adopted the PCI to be a mandate for every payment and banking service in the market, and followed by the same approach by SAMA and NISA. They do require a mandate the PCI, which is a great approach. They actually adopt in their customized approach as well from the PCI controls. And they indirectly even require some points to be reflected, which would be easier to go and comply with the standard to make it an easier attestation of your maturity and compliance with the regulators. So I see that there is a rise and awareness that happened in the past few years in the region, and this is making the ecosystem of payments and banking even more improved and ready to face a lot of risks that were before not addressed and not monitored at all.
Hello.
So the question to you, Mr. Prabhakar, with this, that you have been with PCI from a very long time. You have seen like the older version and the new version. How do you see that the 4.0.x, right? How does it totally different from the previous versions, right? In terms of adopting the new thing, because here in the new version of PCI, they have done a tremendous change to help organization, right, to adopt new things. How do you see as your organization is getting benefited from this?
Yeah, from the standards perspective, first of all, technology is pervasive. And the standards will give you the best practices, and also they will give you to a great extent what to do. And standards like PCA may be a little more prescriptive, and they may tell you also certain things in a prescriptive manner, but how to do it is always with the organization implementing the standards. So with respect to that, if you see the 4 point, the latest, they have given a lot of customized approach, and the shared responsibility, and adopting the cloud technologies or adopting the new technologies, then targeted risk analysis and risk management stuff. Similarly, the way you do a lot of things on your security testing, like you can move a lot of things to shift left. That's what we call it, like by design and default. You do a lot of things and reduce, and risk-based approach to a lot of areas what you are doing. Similarly, with respect to the technologies also, if you take either artificial intelligence or you train your models with the data, whatever you have, the same approach you should take. So you take the risk-based approach, you understand your environment better, you know what kind of data is coming to your network and what kind of processing you are doing. So everything depends on what is that you are handling in your environment, and what is the service and what is the delivery you are giving. So you should be very conscious about it. And then if you take any standard, even the regulations, whatever you are talking about, regulations are little paramount, because that's what you have to respect. And the regulations may refer to a lot of standards, or they may not even refer. And similarly, there are certain things related to technology. Technology-based standards are also promulgated by the respective geolocations or geos. So we have to take care of all these things, and to ensure that from a compliance perspective, that's why in any standard, if you see, they may write a lot of best practices down below, but in the beginning itself, they will say that you should comply with statutory, regulatory requirements and laws of the land. The standard statement will be there. Then afterwards, you follow whatever you want. So unless you do it, remaining things like best practices only. So that's what we have to adapt. From a PCA perspective, whatever the latest 4.0.1 which we are implementing and we are going, from a multi-factor authentication perspective, from a targeted risk management perspective, within the targeted risk management, I think they have referred some 8-9 areas where we can leverage the targeted risk management and do the things, cloud adaptability, and even the old HSM to moving to cloud HSM. There are a lot of flexibility. It's an extension. I don't say that they're different or this thing. It's an extension and continuously evolving. So yeah, most of the times, as Nitin is also telling, one is that they take a lot of feedback from the industry, and they are addressing certain concerns and making it, more interoperable and give the trust and safety and security.
Right. So one last question to all of you, right? What advice would you give to the business, right, to maintain the payment security with the new technologies, right, in the maintaining the PCI DSS compliance? What advice would you give? I'll start with Mr. Nitin.
I think, see, from my side, I think what I would like to say all your customers and is one thing that for sure training is very, very critical. Getting your teams trained on the standards is going to change the perspective first. Reading the standards, going through by yourself is again going to help you a lot in terms of making sure that you understand what exactly that you're getting into. Training, when I talk about the trainings, we have the PCIP training, we have PCI ISA training. And the difference is the PCIP is someone who is a payment professional who would just want to pick up on the journey of payment industry, want to understand how the payments looks like, the ecosystem looks like. Is a good starting point for anyone to get a fair understanding, because implementation of these standards can only happen when you have a right education on how the implementation should be done. Secondly, the ISA, which I have been talking to Mr. Suresh also, is ISA is something that we are seeing a good increase in demand in the region. And I think ISA will help organization to internally ensure that you're understanding the requirements and maintaining these compliances with the standards of PCI, the PCI standard. That is going to help you also interact with the QSA. The discussions that are going to happen between ISA and QSA is going to help your timelines. The way now you do it, you have to assume while you have an ISA and a QSA interacting together, the journey is going to look like different totally altogether. Because the ISAs and the QSAs are being trained by the PCI, and we ensure that they understand the basics, nitty-gritties of how the standard implementation should be done. And second and last thing that I just want to tell is to your stakeholders and customers is that working with the trusted partners, that's the key. I think that should be the key thumb rule for you. For example, you want to choose a software, please go to the PCI Security Standard Council website, check whether the software is listed, validated, which version it is validated, what are the operating system it is validated on, and then probably go ahead and make those decisions. That's going to help you. Working with ISAs, QSAs who are authorized to do the audits. You have to ensure everything. And I think that's, if you just, it's like some basics. These are some basics. If you take those into consideration, I think the life is going to be simple.
For you. On the same, what advice would you give? Like, this is from Mr. Nitin's side, right? What, from your point of view, what advice would you give to maintain the payment security, with the PCI DSS compliance?
So PCI DSS is one standard which will promote card data security, and there are a lot of other standards also applicable to the industry which you are operating with respect to if you are in a healthcare or something. So take example, we are a technology service provider to financial institutions, and I think we have been certified to more than 8-9 standards. All ISO we got, 27, 22, 27701, privacy and all, SOC 1, SOC 2, PCI DSS, PCI 3DS, and earlier I used, and even the GDPR. Right? So there are so many standards, regulations available, but if you say, take the bottom line, so that's what I do in my organization also with my team, harmonization of lot of this stuff. So if you do the harmonization, at least 50 to 60% of your life will be common. So the basic controls, the control domains, and the objectives of those areas, whatever you are talking, irrespective of the technology, 70 to 80% it is common. So normally I used to call it internally core and edge. For me, the core is my core management system. which consists of all the data security, what you call your core data security or PII information and various authentication, all these things, these are all the core. But for me, anything I add to that core is my additional certification. If I add 2, 3 extra, then I will get 27701 done. Because my core is already there. I am following all the practices which are mandated. They are hygiene for me. So they are already there. So just add that 2, 3 plugins, I am done for that standard. Or another 2, 3, I will be done. So my variation, if you see any new standard comes, are you ready? I am 90% ready. Because the best practices do not change much. Because they are the first principles. And second, when a new regulation comes, what is the delta? That's what I have to focus. So that way, from a compliance perspective, yes, life is little easy. That's one part. But more than the compliance, yesterday somebody was telling whether compliance gives security or security gives compliance or something. So basically, this is what we used to call, I myself, an auditor some time back, I have done more than 250 assessments myself across various domains and verticals. So the intent and content and letter and spirit, both are very important. So one is that getting certification, but deriving the benefits of the certification for internal and external purposes. The external purposes benefit, definitely you may say that, okay, I got a degree. I'm a qualified engineering or a management graduate. But am I doing justice with my qualification and education after getting into the profession? That's what matters. So it doesn't matter, like you can be a school dropout, still you can do wonders in the profession. So this is the difference I see between the security and the certification and the building the real stuff. So they have to go together. I don't say that certifications are not good. Certifications are good. They give you the best practice. They will lay the foundation, but you build on top of it based on the environment you are in. That's very, very important, that visibility, that context. So the problem is that you say that encrypt. Whether encryption is a suitable solution for me, I have to see that. I can do truncation, I can do masking, I can do pseudonymization. Hundreds of things I can do to protect the confidentiality. But which solution best fits for me is very important, because it has got business ramifications from a latency perspective, from retention perspective. There are a lot of other paraphernalia we have to look for. So this is very important when you are implementing your controls and achieving the compliance. Achieving compliance, even one way of doing confidentiality. But multiple ways of doing the same thing still benefit the business and ensure to give the experience and the protection to the consumer. That's very important.
Right.
Because these are all under the hood and customer doesn't know.
Thank you. So, Mr. David, to you, like, because on this particular panel you are representing Middle East, right? What suggestion would you give to your other fellows from the Middle East, that how do you maintain the payment security with PCI DSS compliance?
When we come to the advice part, it's a very hard part to discuss. Okay, I want to provide 3 advices for 3 sectors. So first of all, to the council and the standards, we need to bridge the gap between the standards and the technical controls. And here's, I want to reflect on your point as well. We faced a challenge in complying with a certain point, actually pushing on a certain vendor to apply a certain control, reflecting or referring, we are referring to the standard. And we had a huge debate with the vendor that this is not mandated by the standard. And it came out to be his truth. But I forced him to increase his security controls because I see that there is a risk there. So what I'm saying is that you need to bridge the gap between the controls and the technical controls, because there is a huge difference between requiring encryption and stating the proper way of implementing encryption. So we had a challenge in this in the 3DS. This is why I asked for a refresh for the 3DS, because OTP is not considered as sensitive data, which is something that is very, very critical to me. It's a time-based, yes, but
I think we should chat offline, and I would love to get your feedback and pass it on to the standards
yeah.
team.
So this is an example on this. So if the standards For example, if you work collaboratively with NIST, for example, and you bridge the gap between the GRC controls and the technical controls, it would help us a lot from the customer side to implement the correct controls at each point. So my second advice for the customer side is through the same collaboration method between the technical or non-technical controls, you need to have a collaboration between both your teams on the between the GRC team and the cybersecurity team. Because I have seen it a lot in my region that the cybersecurity experts are not that good with the controls and the compliance. They don't know the exact controls that are required by the DSS.
Yeah.
And on the other side, the GRC guy knows the controls. He actually, he can tell you any control by number and what it states, but he don't know that much how it is implemented correctly. So they both reach an aha point where they are not matching or know how to implement the correct control to match the point. My final advice for the QSA. So the QSA as well needs to be educated on the technical level heavily, because we rely on the consultants and the QSA to guide us, to bridge this gap. So when they check our systems and mispointing a gap, this leaves us at risk. And when they point on a gap that is not there or have a compensatory control, this actually makes us go into arguments, a lot of arguments. Yeah. And in both cases, it's like the false positive issue. In both cases, it's actually make it harder for the customer to make sure that he is compliant, and at the same time, he satisfies the QSA requirements.
Thank you, Mr. And with this, I would like to conclude the session with the takeaway from this particular session is one, which Mr. Prabhakar has mentioned, that the basic controls, right? The best practices has to be there always to maintain the security. And like Mr. Nitin, you have mentioned about it, like that the awareness and training is very, very important, right? We would like to thank you from the Controlcase side to all the panel members. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Nitin? Thank you. Once again, I think good morning to all of you. We will be running as per schedule. We are currently 15 minutes behind schedule. So I will request the speakers and the panel members to please keep track of this. But before I do that, yesterday some of the recipients of the shield or plaque were not there at the time we gave it. And I'll request them to be ready and first break, which is after 30 minutes. And that will be National Bank of Egypt, State Bank of India, KNAT, Majid Al Futam, BIDV, DU, and the first time certification Transcend, and Accelera for the second time because they did ISO 27701. So please be available, and we'll call you. Another announcement is that in that break, before you go for coffee, we'll have a group photo, which we were to do yesterday, so we'll make it up. But be attentive, the sessions to follow now and the next one are very important. They are new, upcoming, all were important, but these are very important because they're upcoming and new. And therefore, you may have some background, but not as much as you had in other sessions yesterday. So may I now request Biju John, my colleague and Senior Vice President, who heads payment solutions for our group, he's the vertical head of that, to talk about payment products and ecosystem. Biju, please come.
Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm Biju John, as sir introduced. We're going to talk something PCI world in the payment ecosystem. You all know about PCI DSS, and most of you are already certified in a PCI DSS environment. But this is a standards which beyond DSS. As you go through the presentation, we'll see what are the various systems covering the payment ecosystem, and I will cover those standards. It may be a little technical for you, little bit of technical, but I don't go into details. But how does it all fit into the payment ecosystem? So I like to just give you an heads up on the current cybersecurity, the threats currently having this. If you read this, you'll see that there's a prediction on 2025, there will be $10 trillion affected. This is by Visa. There's a data they have analyzed. They are thinking that may be huge. But to give the perspective of what happened in 2024, look at this sheet. It's about 7 million cards were fraud, and the impact was $8+ billion. So you could look at this, the whole payment industry, the whole fraud, cybersecurity threats are huge, and it's going to go up. We talked about AI technology, we talked about new upcoming other standards coming up or other innovations coming up in the industry. This will have a positive impact on how we're going to do, but this also have on the flip side, because they may have another impact on the security. So let's go into payment ecosystem. So PCI DSS has developed standards to cover the DSS or cardholder data, but the whole ecosystem was to cover the entire ecosystem, not only the DSS. If you look into PCI DSS, everybody talks about DSS, but the whole idea was to cover the entire ecosystem. So you see that various issuers, processors, accurers are there, service providers, vendor. You come across all these various entities in that ecosystem against merchants. Now you see the channels there. Those are primarily now what we see, e-commerce, that's online payment, or ATM, that's a card present transactions. Then we have the POI device. If you notice, there's something new there, that is MPOC. Many of you know about MPOC. This is mobile payment on cards. Now, this is something new, came up from Council, right? So what's the difference between this POI and MPOC? If you go to any shop, you see that POI device sitting there. You're going to use a card. And so far, the payment was restricted on the PTS certified devices. But going forward, there is a new evolution of standard and evolution of payment method. We are going to use normal mobile phone. What do you have? So that's a new standard. And it has additional security issues, and there is a standard already come up. The compliance mechanism for that is much stricter, much more complex. However, you may see this coming in the ecosystem very soon. And it has already started. A lot of vendors have started using this MPOC. So you may see that very soon. It's slightly different than what you see on an Apple Pay or Google Pay. That's not what we are talking about here. That is something mobile provisioning. This is, we are purely talking about a payment on a normal mobile device. So if you look at the standards, all these various entities which we covered earlier, you look at that, I'm not purposely didn't put DSS there, but most of these entities, naturally they had to cover DSS because that is the common standard which they need to. However, going through the standard, we'll see a lot of additional standards. Perhaps a lot of people in this group, I think I know a lot of people were having multiple certification beyond DSS. But look at this, the card production. So when you start an ecosystem, what is the whole system? What is the security we are trying to implement? And at the end of the day, you, or the customer, or the client. The whole point is to make sure we do a secure transaction. So the first is, you get a card. The card is produced. That is where the first card holder coming into picture. That is card production. And that standard is a very complex standard. And that is where the cards are produced. Many people in the industry actually make this card, and very expensive environment to build that process. And the standard is very rigorous standard. To go through that problem, that standard, that compliance program, it's really, really tough. But there's a reason for that, right? There is obviously because that is the first fundamental part of any card-holder data. Now there are two aspects to this. Card-holder data is split into two. One is physical and then logical. So standard is massive. Then you will also see token service provider. This was implemented a couple of years ago, not really picked up. But again, what was the intent? The cardholder data will be converted into a token. So environment like merchant, for example, the security of mostly cardholder data, the problem is they have cards in their environment, basically the PAN. You saw, everybody knows that, right? CSD. But if you segment, if you take out from that, from the merchant, you're literally saying that, well, that is a secure environment. You don't have any cardholder data. So the token service provider was implemented, and it was only occurring token, by the way, it's an occurring PAN, and it was implemented. So the evolution was not much, but it is still there. Then you see the 3DS, right? 3DS is what? It's an authentication mechanism. So the payment you do on an e-commerce, so the whole idea was to protect. And there are a lot of frauds happening on the e-commerce environment or the world. Now, this is specifically mentioned by the MasterCard, Visa. You may say Visa ready, MasterCard ready, all this when you sign up into an e-commerce site. And 3DS was an additional layer of authentication to make sure that the consumer, again, is protected from fraud. Now, PIN security, you see that these standards are applied to watch entity. If you look at the top, you will see which entities are applicable to. Now, PIN security. So you see that now we are moving away from a CSD perspective. CSD includes PIN, but you really don't store. You just transmit. But here, the PIN, how the whole PIN, that 4-digit you are talking about, how that is being managed by an entity. So the security aspect of that, the encryption, PIN block creation, how that is transmitted, how that is translated, everything comes into that PIN security standard. Then P2P, this is an interesting one. So again, we talked about descoping from the PCI DSS. The P2PE stands for payment to the decryption environment all the way encryption. So wherever the cardholder data is literally traversing through the network is encrypted. So nobody can see it. The idea was descope. So the scope, the DSS scope starts to come down, and P2P, or rather, consumer is protected. From a merchant perspective, from Now, recently, a couple of years ago, there is a transition from software security. You may have heard about PADSS. That has been retired. Now, we started into secure software standard. There are two aspects to this. One, I believe, Nitin, maybe you can explain more, but looks like they have divided into two. One is the technical aspects of the software. The other one is also the development process. So the vendor creates a payment gateway. Pretty good. We went through the certification, everything looks good. But the process behind the creation was seldom missed, right? Probably nobody knows how they are created. We all know that standard is built. So the SSLC, the Secure Life Cycle started coming. This is nothing but software development, but in a secure way. So every document or development process happens in a secure manner. That is the secure life cycle. I put the validation, so some are annual, some are 3 years validity, but this is how the standard is. Now let us look into the payment ecosystem. Now we talked about PCI, DSS, we talk about cardholder data. Now where are the other standards starts to come in? You see the data what we are protecting. So we talked about the production of card, the card production, physical, logical. This is the card production elements, the basic elements in your card, plastic. This one is what we are protecting, the CPP. The cardholder data is there, but there are a lot of additional, the issuer certificates, a lot of additional data are there in the card production. So that's what card production is really protecting. Now, you see the DSS where cardholder data, but you see token and 3DS. The reason being, these two standards handles CSD, PAN. At the same time, they are descoping. They are moving the PAN into a token. From 3DS angle, they also have PAN, but they are adding an authentication system into the payment ecosystem. So, but the DSS is mandatory there. So these two standards. Now the P2PE, that is also payment data. So what happens in a payment? Let's assume somebody goes to Walmart and doing a payment. So he swipes or dip or tap the card. It goes to the network, goes to the cloud or wherever and hits the payment gateway, get the authorization, come back. Now look at the cardholder data transmitted across the whole chain. This is serious, right? Everything, all this channels which it transferred has to be secured. But P2P has a different approach here. It encrypts the moment it captures the data. It's called something somebody of you know, that SRED, probably, it's a buzzword, but symbol is secure read and exchange of data. That's it, what it is, but it is a hardware encryption. That's the difference. The only POI device can encrypt, and decryption environment, or rather the data center, decrypts it. So look at the encrypted data going across the whole world. It's all encrypted, nobody can say it, and merchant is actually scoping the PCI DSS. Now, SSF, okay. The word SSF is a framework, secure software framework. It has these two standards that I mentioned earlier, secure software and secure software lifecycle. It comes as a framework. That's how the standard is put by the council. Now, what is, again, it is protecting payment data. Imagine the payment gateway. What does it do? What does it get? It's actually, what does it do is basically getting the card not present transactions. So it has the PAN, it has the CVV. Payment data is actually collected into that software payment gateway. Now the payment data has to be secured. So we are protecting the payment data, but it's only the software which handles the payment. That is the catch here. The software which only handles payment data are eligible for this. Now PIN is protecting the PIN. The 3-digit PIN, you put it into the ATM or a POS device. So look at the standard. So in ecosystem, whatever data which is protecting, all are crucial. And any compromise on any of this are, in fact, is a security threat. So you may have in scope, you may not have in scope, but look into the landscape. DSS may not be enough, actually, to protect the entire payment ecosystem. Again, depends on what you do, depends on what's the nature of your entity, what not. Also, the requirement comes from acquirer or the brands. Again, we are not saying that you should certify, but you should check with your acquirer whether I should do this. Because it's always better to check with your upstream provider and ask, well, we handle PIN, shall we certify on PIN, or what is the requirement here? So I'll go through quickly on this is the technical part, but I don't want to go more into this. Again, we all covered this technical part on the card production part. You'll see that ecosystem there, right? Basically, this is how the token service provider works, and this is a PCI PIN. These are various entities involved in the PIN processing. And we have 3DS, the authentication we talked about. There are 3 elements there. You'll see that in the DS environment, in the 3DS environment. And now we have P2P. Again, P2P, I talked about the SRED part. You see that on the left, that encryption happens within the PR device. I want to touch upon the MPOC side here. We mentioned earlier that the MPOC handles only normal mobile device, and it need not be PCI PTS approved. The difference is this one is a hardware encryption. The MPOC is software encryption. So there's a fundamental difference there. SSF, we talked about SSF. So this is a secure framework. We'll have 2 standards coming up. So again, these are, eligibility is very important for us because the software which handles the payment data, if it is sold to a third party, then only it qualifies, otherwise it doesn't qualify. Please note that. However, you can review the secure standards framework on your software, but it won't be listed if it is not eligible. So I just want to show the whole ecosystem. What are we talking about? All the standards we talked about. You see the flags there who are basically what are there applicable to which all entities. So let's talk about challenges. I think this is few areas where the system, the entities face because of these complexities, right? I mean, we are talking about real standards. Secure standard is written to protect, but it comes with real challenges. So let's talk about the initial control. Basically, the problem is the technical aspect. The entities cannot interpret how the standard, they cannot read and understand, and the way they interpret that control is slightly different. So they started to talk about, or they understand differently, and they started to implement internally, and once a QSA goes there, the first session maybe is saying, no, this is not the way to do it. And you may have seen different cases at different versions, different interpretations, but standard is black and white. It's very clear. It may come up with additional control because some of the cases, for example, some of the standards you need HSM. And HSM comes with an additional requirement. So these are some additional controls you may have to develop or put into your environment, and it may not be compliant also. So the constraints is where you spend a lot of money on some technology part to implement, and then realize that, well, it does not comply. You don't have a business, you have a problem there. Then you have also the legacy system, the outdated systems. Some of them are old, but due to some reason, you put it there. And of course, the cybersecurity. We talked about AI here earlier. Most of us touched upon AI yesterday. It was a lot of AIs. Troy has explained a very how the impact of AI, and we have seen in our assessment how people are using in a different way. The AI can be used, AI is pretty good, but one of the assessment in the sandbox, we found that it has actually worked in a different way. So we went deep into this. So they have used AI to mask the vulnerability there. So it can be used in a different way. So the threat is huge, the assessment is real complex, and it comes with a lot of baggage. External partners. So this is something important. There are a lot of service providers, support staff, support entities you may have, and this comes with a critical problem. Supposing if they are also equally responsible for you if they handle payment system, payment data, right? So that is very important. Due diligence, you need to make sure they are actually have the proper process. The responsibility matrix is clearly defined, agreed, signed, and make sure they know what they are responsible for. Now, I just want to say what we put in place. What is Controlcase can contribute here? So we have a very good skill we have in this field. You have seen what Controlcase has been doing since 2015. We have different verticals. All are highly skilled. Domains is huge. We can discuss on any technologies, in fact. So we come and with a lot of knowledge, a lot of skills. And this is where the Controlcase really set apart from other QSs. You may have noticed that. But I can definitely say that is what Controlcase value is. And we also have the scoping. If you have worked with Controlcase, the first thing any QS says or any assessor says, we need to get the scoping passed. There's a reason for that. Unless you have the scoping, correct scoping, you never get this assessment passed. That is the important aspect. And we also give the guidance. We also go with partnership, right? We never give you a non-compliant report saying that, sorry, we cannot certify you. We say, let's work together. We'll help you, and you get compliant. You get compliant, we get satisfaction. That is the approach we do. So it's a partnership approach. And, of course, the third-party dependence. We also talk to the third parties if required. We have multiple times done that. So with that, I need to conclude. I will go with the panel discussion. So I'd like to call upon Dinesh. Okay, Dinesh has 15 years experience in cybersecurity. He has managed DSS, PIN, CPP, and ISO certification for ICPS. He's an old customer, he's an old friend. Welcome, Dinesh. We have Joseph from PSS. He's the CEO of PSS. Highly skilled, very true leader. He has experience in IT, business, accounts, you name it, but he's a very professional leader from PSS. Welcome. And we have Mohammed Ayadi. You have seen him yesterday, but we cannot leave him because he has all bundles under his wings. He has done DSS, 3DS, CPP, you name it. I always talk to him because one or the other, he has certification under us. Strong leader, highly qualified IT skilled person, and it's very good to know about his views on this. Definitely. And we have Gangamna. He is from Gomnath Bank. Young chap, but very skilled, knowledgeable. It's very fun to work with, and they have implemented 3DS. This is a new customer, but the way they have implemented is really professional. And we have Badri. You know Badri, I don't think I need introduction, but he is the VP in the MENA region, and he will be conducting the.
Thank you, Biju.
space. Okay, fine. Okay, you guys. Okay.
Okay, thank you everyone, and thanks guest on the chair. So, as you understood, this a particular session was pertaining to non-DSS. Since all your organization is going through different certification apart from the DSS. So the first question, not the question, but it will be like a topic which we want to discuss upon, is about the challenges. Because being DSS certified is not enough for any organization. So you want to compete in the market, you need to go through some other compliances, and that is what non-DSS certification will come into the picture. So for each one of you, I want to discuss about what are the challenges you face when you are going through a different certification apart from the DSS. So we'll start with you, Dinesh.
Thank you, Badri, thank you. I believe, from the start of the presentation of Biju, we talk about the ecosystem, right? And this is where it starts. So yes, we talk about DSS when we into payment processing, transmission, and storage. And apart from that, if we take, for example, our case, in that ecosystem, we are having card personalization. We are having a relation with banks with regard to PIN management. So this is where we need to focus on the different, processing, transmission of those sensitive information. And that's the key reasons we try to implement best practices, which are the standards. And to answer your question, so challenges, of course, there are challenges to implement. And I believe we talked about it from yesterday itself. It's awareness, it's education, it's understanding, it's having the right people, to help, to support during those implementation. And of course, is fundamental is to get advice, right? So we've been working with Controlcase for so many years, and having advice is very important, because if at start itself we implement it wrongly, so definitely during the journey, when you will face an assessor or the QSA, say, these things are wrong. So I think at beginning, at project level, it's very important to have the right advice and give instructions to the teams to implement.
So actually, here what I want to understand, because these certifications, they are not DSS. So first thing we have to understand, the scope is different for each certification, apart from the DSS. So, and that is the challenging part, because the scope is different in PIN or your SSF or in card production. So being an organization ICPS, you are doing all the other PIN, CPP and other standards. How it will help you, what are the challenges you face and how you overcome those challenges with the help of guidance from the assessor or something?
Yeah, it's a journey. It's a journey in itself. So it's not that it's a 1 week or 2 week or 1 month thing to implement. It's definitely analysis. We have to understand. It's a long journey where we have to bring the teams who don't understand security. At some point in time, but it's a teamwork. If we have to use that right word, it's a teamwork between different key stakeholders to meet the requirement.
So, Mr. Yusuf, the topic is same. I want to know, when you are going for other certification other than the DSS, so how you are coping up with those challenges?
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. Our company is serving the payment transactions as well as a card personal center for banks, around 6-7 banks, where they are using the personal center. So, other than DSS, we also in the process of certification of the personal center with CPP. So, 9 years before, when we certify the DSS, we are the first in the country to certify these things. Again, we are also the first company to certify our personal center. You know, the CPP, one of the challenges in CPP is that there is a physical questions. You know, you should do physical security as well as logical security. Now, understanding the scope, understanding the scope is one of the challenge. You know, after that also you build your physical security. You know, to secure the personal environment. It requires many things. Where it requires, you know, knowledge. It requires different kinds of material. It requires different kinds of gates. You know, it requires different kinds of investment. You can't afford it immediately in 6 months or so. It will take more than a year. So we are also in the process. So we are in challenge. Still we are in the final stage, but it is going good.
And definitely it is giving you like a upper hand in the market also, upon getting certified with other than DSS certifications.
Yes, yes, definitely. We are planning to make our personal center the country personal center. Definitely any bank, any payment system in that country not yet certified. So that will definitely become our brand.
Thank you. So Mr. Anwar, you also like a seasonal player in the other than DSS certifications in the market in Tunisia. So how you are understanding, since it is going for long, the CPP, the PIN, 3DS and all the certifications. So how, I mean, not about the challenges, because challenges you are already dealing with those, but how is, you know, upskilling your position in the market? So that is, you can say something.
Thank you. So, as you mentioned from Mr. Bijou, we have 4 certification each year to do. So, and of course, different scopes, different evidence. And the challenge for us, of course, is how to maintain all the certification and how to do this with the minimum of investment. And of course, we had to optimize our investments in money and time and people, of course. I want to give you our experience with 2 QSAs, 2 European QSAs. SMT had worked with them for more than 6 or 7 years for 3DS, for PCI PIN, and for card productions. And each one of them sometimes give us some requirement or something are mandatory, which has an impact for investment or for requiring something. And the last one, so the last QSA, so in the card production since 2 years, when he comes to us to make his assessment, we are using HSM for encryption for all the transaction for our system authorization or for our 3DS, for the PIN, everything. So actually we have HSM dedicated for the system authorization, and also it is chaired by or used by the 3DS for the e-commerce platform. The QSA told us that it is mandatory to have 2 HSM dedicated for the 3DS platform, for the e-commerce platform. Of course, for us, we don't know the PCI council controls. If the QSA told us this, for us, it is like this. We cannot say anything. But last year, we had changed it all, and we had contracted all our certification with Controlcase. And in one discussion with Mr. Bizu and his team, so we discussed about this point, about the...
That is one of the point Biju also mentioned, the skill.
Yes.
The skills which you are,
So
experiencing
So
with the
we
control case
found
people
that what the other QSA
Make the
thought
changes.
is not right. Is not right. We had the
Definitely.
segmentation of the network done very well, and really we don't need to have dedicated HSM for the 3DS.
So it is not only one area, there are several other areas where we provide the guidance to the customers, how and help you with the controls and how to implement and what is the exact requirements so that you don't face any challenges. So Mr. Bhagna, yeah. So also you are going for, being a bank also, issuer also, you are going for a other than DSS certification. So what are your comments on that?
Yeah, thank you for the inviting us. And then our bank is operating in the Mongolia, and which is providing the financial service like the e-commerce. And this time, and our bank is only card issuer for the American Express. And then from the last year, and American Express is required the 3DSs in the bank, and then in this time, and we will work with the Controlcase team, and then we achieve the 3DS. And there is all the penalties say that we have faced the same challenge here, and then for the scoffing and then HSM side we have same challenge. And then I talk about the network segmentation is very big challenge for us, and because there is no access between the 3DS's scope and PCI's scope, and then maybe we need to create a new network architecture, and then we create a plan, and then we will moving all the servers from the PCI's to 3DS scope. And that was very time consuming and very huge work. And then I highly talk about this challenge. Yeah.
Thank you, Bhagna, and thank you all the esteemed panel members for your time to discuss about this. There are several other points of which we want to discuss, but due to limitation of the time, we have to conclude this session. So thank you very much. Thank you. So I would like to invite Mr. Mike to present some. So Mr. Dinesh. Mr. Yusuf. Mr. Anwar. Mr. Ganbagna. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. I think we have now the felicitation for some of the important clients who were left out yesterday, and that includes, the first one is, of course, National Bank of Egypt. National Bank of Egypt. We have been together for 15 years, And we would like to felicitate them for the relationship, the partnership, which is very, very strong and growing. May I now request State Bank of India? State Bank of India. The largest bank in India with over 60,000 ATMs, over 22,000 branches, and then of course everything first. So let me request Mike. Is someone from BIDV here? BIDV? The Bank of Industrial Development. Okay, somebody from KNAT, I think KNAT is there. So KNAT, may I request Raj and his colleague to be here? BIDV and DU, and Majid Al Futem. Is anyone from Majid Al Futem? Finally, I think we have two of our partners who got certified for the first time. One, first time ever. Second, first time in additional certificate. So let me call first Transcend. Oh, come. Asleda or Akleda Bank for ISO 27701. All right, so I think after this, let me just, okay. Okay, I think now we are going to have a short break and arrange for group photo, and then we are going, just to be sure that our speakers stay on for the coffee at least, I'm going to felicitate the three external speakers just after the coffee break, which is only 15 minutes. So kindly have a break. We'll have a group photo stage arranged. We'll have a group photo and followed by felicitation of our esteemed, distinguished speakers. Thank you.
flows down, right? So everything which any companies out here in Asia Pacific, whether it's a MSP, MSSP, any solution provider which provides services, and I was just talking to a gentleman who's based in Australia, anyone amongst them, if they are providing any kind of services or their solution to the US federal agencies, and there are a whole bunch of them, including Department of Education, US Mint, US Postal Service, and if they are providing services to that, a FedRAMP becomes a required certification to be achieved. And if it's for Department of Defense, it's going to be the CMMC certification. So we are going to kind of cover both of them in a short session of 20 minutes. Then I'll have a panel members up here to kind of discuss a little more in detail about the challenges and the steps and the processes to get to a FedRAMP and a CMMC certification. So getting started. So very quick, clear agenda for this. We are going to talk FedRAMP, CMMC, what are our services offering related to that, and then we'll get into the Q&A. So FedRAMP, basically, this has been a standard which has been for a long period of time, right? It's been here since 2012, the FedRAMP standard. And what it provides is a standardized approach to doing a security assessment and authorizing and continuous monitoring for cloud services, right? So it's mainly dependent on cloud services which you offer to the federal agencies. FedRAMP certification, so it's applicable for PaaS, SaaS, software as a service, platform as a service, or infrastructure as a service, and we'll kind of talk a lot more around it. The main certification standard is based on the NIST SP 853. So that's the standard as the security baseline which has been used. And it's also similar to FISMA, which was again a regulation devised in the US. Okay. Now, they had a recent change in the past, I believe like past 6 months, where they were having 2 different processes to get through a FedRAMP certification. One was called JAB, Joint Authorization Board, and the other one was the Program Management Office through the ATO process. JAB is no longer active. They've kind of cut it down. It was a process which basically allowed solution providers, cloud solution providers, to get the FedRAMP certification using the JAB process, which was the Joint Authorization Board, if they have not already sold their solution to a federal agency. No longer active, you have to already be a part of a federal agency to kind of get to your FedRAMP certification, and that's the ATO process, and I'll talk a little bit in depth about it a little later. Now, who are the FedRAMP stakeholders, right? Of course, the companies who do the cloud solution providers, so the cloud service providers are one of them. The federal agencies on the other side, which is basically US Mint, Department of Education, all the different federal agencies, a whole based in Washington, DC area where we are headquartered from. So we have a lot of relationships with a lot of these federal agencies. Then comes the FedRAMP PMO, which basically accredits us to do a FedRAMP certification. That accreditation is called 3PAO. And of course, 3PAO as the third-party risk assessment companies, we are accredited by the FedRAMP PMO. So that's how the whole relationship works while providing the services for a cloud service provider. As I mentioned, uses 853. The latest revision 5, is what is used these days for doing the FedRAMP certification. Different domains, you probably are covered. It covers extensively about all these different domains which are used for many of the certifications, right? We have, at the baseline, within a Compliance Hub platform, mapped all of it together. So with the PCI standards and an access control AC domain related to FedRAMP is all mapped behind. So one audit really helps in terms of kind of making sure the control objectives are met from both perspectives. Okay, Now here's something which is important because FedRAMP does have a particular timeline and a process to get through, okay? The most important for any companies to, if they want to get through on a path of FedRAMP certification, is to figure out what kind of timeline they will need, because it starts with the biggest piece in here, which is the SSP, which is a System Security Plan. It's a document which has to be put in place extensively of how you're meeting each control, what's the steps of how you've mitigated the control, how you're actually working on the control, how it was implemented, all details related to the complete scope of that particular environment where you're providing it. So building an SSP is a task. It comes with a lot of other documents along with it. But as and when you finish the SSP, you essentially get into the assessment process where you have the system assessment document available. Then the next step from there is to authorize it. So you have this System Assessment Report, SAR. There are lots of abbreviations with SSP, SAP, SAR. But you come up to the authorization phase, which is the System Assessment Plan document, the report SAR, System Assessment Report document, and the POAM and M, which is the Plan of Action and Milestones. So there are these two major documents which are needed as part of the authorization phase, and then you essentially go in for the monitoring phase. So all this process, from a timeline perspective, if you are the first time out there to achieve the FedRAMP certification, would take about 6 months to do it. So let's get prepared. If it's the first one, the step first to get in, we could go ahead and assist you with the readiness aspect around it by preparing the SSP, or alternatively, we could also do the certification if your readiness has been completed. Okay. How do you essentially go through your FedRAMP path, right? So I've kind of put down in like simple steps in here where you can essentially categorize your information systems, what you need in the low, moderate, and high, because that defines the number of controls which you need to select for your FedRAMP certification. Once you implement the security controls in there and you assess the security controls, that's where we would come into play as a 3PAO to assess those security controls and then authorize your information system or the solution to go ahead and get you certified, and after that comes the monitoring step. So it's a plain, simple route like anything else, but we have to define and categorize your FedRAMP controls, which is the low, medium, and high. ATO process. Now, there was a JAB process before. There was a difference between how a JAB and an ATO process works. But out here in the ATO process, you need to get a sponsored agency to work with you on your cloud service solution so that they can assist you and get you through the ATO process. So it is very dependent on your solution, the agency where it is implemented. You work with the agency team. They call it the sponsorship for your FedRAMP certification. They will assist you to work with it. You will create your SSP document. You will bring in us as a third party to do the actual assessment. We will work, we'll provide them with the SAR, and the steps which I had described earlier will take into shape. But remember, an agency is needed if you want to get a FedRAMP certification. There's no longer JAB associated. Agency is needed. Agency sponsorship is needed. And you have to have that independent relationship with the agency when you get through the FedRAMP process. Continuous monitoring, like anything else, like any other standard, any other regulation, with the changing environment, with the changing threat vectors, you have to have a continuous monitoring implemented and authorized with the agency process. So those are little pieces of information around it. Now, I'm like looking at the timer. I want to keep it short and sweet, so I went through a lot of information on FedRAMP. I'm going to switch boats out here and talk a little bit about CMMC. So CMMC is something which is more specific, okay? It's the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification. Now, it is more specific for DIBs, Defense Industrial Base, which is the suppliers or the vendors for the Department of Defense, which is there. Now, how does it affect companies and organizations out there in the global, in Asia Pacific, Middle East, and other places? Yes, it does affect, because overall, if there's any collaboration which is done by your supplier or your client who essentially provides some kind of services to the prime vendor for the Department of Defense, the whole supply or the whole chain of vendors come into play from a CMMC perspective. And we'll talk a little bit more about how it works. So it has tiered model, it has assessment requirements, it has implementation which needs to be done through contracts. So if you as a service provider or as part of the DIB, Defense Industrial Base, which provides services to Department of Defense, if you have to work with Department of Defense, through the requisition process, through the RFP process, they will always have statements in the fine prints about making sure that you are CMMC certified at a particular level. Okay. We spoke about this. Now, how these levels depend and what's really behind the whole thing is two pieces of information, which Department of Defense has stated as an FCI, which is a Federal Contract Information, and a Controlled Unclassified Information, which is the CUI. Again, lots of abbreviations. That's how the whole US thing works, right? DIB, FCI, CUI. So you kind of have to kind of keep your focus on to figuring out what these are. But the whole idea behind it is to safeguard two sets of information, which is available with you if you are a supplier or a vendor in the chain to the Department of Defense. One is CUI, one is FCI. Okay. A little more detailed information about FCI and CUI. FCI is the information which is not marked as public, but it is for public release. Okay. So that's what FCI essentially is. And CUI is the information which the government creates or processes or possesses on behalf of the government. So if you as a vendor create certain information as part of your contract, which is a classified but uncontrolled information, that becomes a part of the CUI aspect, and you have to get a level 2 certification for that. We'll talk about this out here as a level. So they essentially have 3 levels. One is the foundation level, level 1, level 2 is the advanced level, and level 3 is the expert level for the different practices, right? So 3 levels for CMMC. Earlier it was different, it was 5 levels. They have consolidated a lot. They've got a lot of pieces together as part of the latest rule making. But right now, as we currently stand with the CMMC, version 2.0, again, they have kind of trying to remove the version number 2, it as well. But the latest rule making has consolidated and has 3 levels in here. We'll talk a little bit in depth about these levels. Level 1, FCI. Level 2, CUI. Level 2, you could do self, you could do C3PO as an assisted assessment. So there are these different ones. And for level 3, you have to be a level 2 first, 1. And 2, you can get audited by DIPCAC, which is the DoD agency, to essentially go through and get you audited. It's too far away. Most of the companies around, which are a service provider within the DIB, initially will be subjected to either a level 1 or a level 2 self or a level 2 C3PO. Lots of companies which currently, as a first step ahead, is doing a level 2 assessment. They use Controlcase, or they use services from a C3PO to essentially get through the level 2 certification as well. Who are the stakeholders in here? Okay. Again, more abbreviations come in play out here. One is an RPO, which is a registered practice organization, which is an RPO, which Controlcase is. So we are registered with the Cyber AB board and a registered practitioner. Then the second part is the C3POs, which are the actual auditors. We have been audited by the DIPCAC in the recent past, and we should be having a press release done in the near future related to our C3PO accreditation. So that's what is going to happen. Where do we come in as play, right? As an RPO, and which we have already done, we have worked with lots of different companies in providing the readiness services. So CMMC readiness services is something a lot of companies are requesting. So we take them through the whole set of controls. How do we guide them? How do we create the SSP? We work closely with them to get them through the readiness and get them through the actual certification. Although it's a clear distinction. If we do the readiness, we can do the certification or vice versa. So this is the whole process, but we do have our partners, reference partners whom we can talk to if you ever need to use our services initially for the readiness and then use C3PA to actually get the audit, or again, vice versa. So we work with lots of partners in lots of different global, lots of different countries who have knowledge of CMMC, and we could assist you in any way, shape, or form. So this is what we are talking about, that readiness, right? So both sides of the house, whether it's FedRAMP or CMMC, readiness can be done at different levels, right? You could be ready with certain documentation already available because you are doing certain other regulations or standards like PCI or SOC 2 or ISO. There's a lot of overlap. We look at all of that all together in totality and kind of help you with the least amount of time and energy and, of course, budget dollars to essentially bring you to a point where you're ready to perform certifications, whether it is for FedRAMP as a cloud service provider or as a CMMC level 1 or level 2. So both of these pieces could be done. We have gap assessment services. We provide package services as part of our professional services to perform these readiness services. Alternatively, of course, as a 3PAO, we could do the FedRAMP certification, and shortly to be a C3PAO, we could also assist you from your CMMC level 1 and level 2 certifications. Moving on, and this is great. I've actually caught up on time, so I'm a minute ahead of schedule. We will have a panel discussions shortly. As Mr. Dadlani mentioned, we have one of our panel members, Eric Winkler, who's going to be online as he couldn't travel today here to Dubai. But let me get start and introduce to my other panel members. Firstly, I would like to welcome Donna Ward, VP at BCD Travel. Donna has like 17 plus years of experience, and she is a big part of the strategy and leading the cybersecurity and risk assessment with BCD Travel. Welcome, Donna. Please come. Take a seat. I would also like to welcome Arun from TCS. He heads the security and compliance of TCS Enterprise Cloud. He's assisted many enterprise Fortune 500 companies to do digital transformation for their IS solutions. Welcome, Arun. Please take a seat, Arun. Next, of course, my dear, dear friend Satya Rane, whom you have seen on stage multiple times. Satya, please come on stage. And finally, I would like to welcome Eric Winkler, who's online here with us. He's the head of delivery services for Controlcase for FedRAMP and CMMC. It's late at night, Eric, but hopefully you can hear me clearly.
I can.
Oh, that's great. And by the way, you look really good at this time of the hour. All right, I'll leave it up to Mike Jenner, who's a moderator for this session. So he's going to be asking a few questions to our panel members. All right, you guys have fun, and I'll catch you after the session.
My first question is for Eric, who just went through an audit with the Defense Department. And Eric, could you describe some of the critical steps and preparations that you and your team accomplished in order to get through the U.S. Defense Department audit? Describe some of the most important things in your journey to prepare for that audit.
Sure. I would say the most critical thing was putting together our system security plan document, organizing that in such a manner that we basically included every detail of the environment that was in scope for CMMC. So that included network diagrams and boundary diagrams and data flow diagrams for the environment, as well as documenting exactly how we implemented each control. So that was critical. Having that level of detail on how that control was implemented made the audit go so much smoother. And then obviously supporting that SSP was all of our policies and procedures that allows us to manage the environment and make sure that all of those policies and procedures were matching 100% with the SSP and supported all of the controls as we get documented in the SSP. So I think that focus really helped us get through the audit with the least amount of hurdles and clear the audit, basically pass the audit at the level that we did.
Donna, a question for you. Does BCD Travel, I believe the #1 travel agency in the world, real travel agency, we're not real travel agency in the world, we're not talking about that other one. Does your business provide services to Defense Department personnel or the Defense Department?
Yes, we do. BCD Travel has several prime contractors as our clients that provide services to the DoD.
So what have you been doing this has been a long journey for the approval of the rule. What have you been doing to stay in touch with the changes in the rule and the implementation?
Mike, we were early probably in the process. Maybe in 2019, BCD made its effort to go after be a prime. And one of the requirements of that solicitation was that we have an independent assessment of CMMC, and that was the earlier version. I think it was maybe 1.0 at the time. And we reached out to Controlcase for support, because we are great, you guys have been great partners for us. And you hope those go through getting prepared for that assessment. I understand now that's more of a self-assessment, but we of course appreciate it and the partnership in getting us prepared. And we've been able since then, as part of the ongoing monitoring and maintenance, if you will, produce that report with the support of Controlcase on an annual basis. After that initial RFP, we were able to take that report and then provide it to the other clients that we have that are primes to the DoD. So they've been really appreciative that we were out there ahead of the actual effective date of this requirement. So we've appreciated the updates on the timeline for it to become effective. We get emails about checklists that we can download and use, and webinars. So we share that with our government business development team to keep them apprised of where we are on the effective date for CMMC.
One of the things that we've been thinking about is the impact on this regulation, which is U.S. Defense Department regulation, on businesses around the world. We did a little research prior to the meeting. Turns out there's a key defense industry partnership with India. I think it's Indus X. Also Australia. I think we have some customers from Australia in the room. A key Defense Department, partner, and also UAE is a key partner to the U.S. Defense Department, particularly in satellite and drone activity. From TCS's perspective, do you have any customers with whom are thinking about as subs or as primes how they prepare?
From TCS perspective, yes, we have customers who are part of the DABs, predominantly from the DABs, not from the federal DOD's perspective. The requirement is, yes, there is a stringent requirement which is there from, be it if you take equivalent of FedRAMP or a CMMC in Australia is IRAP. So similar, there are a lot of things which is there, which is we are supporting from the government perspective, and the most I would say is country critical infrastructures, and the DAB, yes, we have a couple of customers where they are very sensitized towards the CMMC requirement, and we take utmost steps to follow their regulatory what they have drawn down to support that, because we do not have direct access to their CMMC data, which we call it as classified data, and that is something which we also take into utmost level of criticality.
One of the things that I wonder is in other markets, do you think that other defense departments will be adopting their own standards, similar to what happened with privacy with, I guess it was the EU with GDPR, and you see other countries adopting their own versions? What do you hear out there in the markets that you serve?
Predominantly, if you're looking at, right, Mike, what you said is, they are designing their own standards, their own stringency towards controlling the data, the access point, be it as I mentioned, Australia is IRAP, which again has 3 levels of certification, level 1, level 2, and level 3. Level 3 is for predominantly the most stringent departments like defense and this one. And if you go to Japan, they do have something very close to like what you have it as a FedRAMP or a similar kind of a thing, where they also are governed as part of that, the regulations which is needed to support their, not only the defense, also to the government sectors. Singapore, for example, has its own highly regulated way. The most classified data cannot even cross the border of Singapore. So we are seeing this, and if you are looking into going into the Europe has its own set of regulations which is controlling the complete data. It's predominantly when you look into the digitization, it is data.
Yeah.
How we are using the data, how we are going to access the data. And that is where we are looking into it as how we can support them from various requirements from that side.
Thank you. Satya, you and Rupesh did a great demo the other day on Compliance Hub. And I noticed on one, you had multiple regulations, of course, through one audit in Compliance Hub, including CMMC. I realize some of the controls and the mapping is evolving, but for clients in the audience who use Compliance Hub, may have customers or their own entity be a sub to the U.S. Defense Department, how should they use Compliance Hub to understand what they have covered if they're ISO or PCI certified, and what work they have left to do.
Yep. So we have seen a demo of Compliance Hub since yesterday, and Compliance Hub is a technology which can integrate a different kind of IT standards and frameworks and regulations, and CMMC is already there. So CMMC latest version is already mapped, and when you are doing any type of certification with Controlcase, you can immediately see how much you are already compliant with CMMC. CMMC follows NIST 800-171 as the standard, having about 110 controls. And those 110 controls have been already mapped on the platform. So essentially, even if you are not doing CMMC, you are doing PCI, or maybe for example of maybe TCS or BCD travel, you are doing something else, maybe PCI, still you are able to see how much you are compliant with your CMMC today, right on the add-on regulations under the Compliance Hub.
Afi, I think our time is up here, and I want to thank you all for attending. Did you have something you wanted to add?
I just wanted to add one thing to what Satya said. There are a lot of organizations which cannot directly go to the CMMC or FedRAMP, but there are customers who are looking at how you are compliant to the NIST 853 or 171 or 172. So what TCS as an enterprise cloud, what we have done is, since as a TCS as an organization is not able to meet that standards which is needed by Department of Defense, what we have done is from the enterprise cloud, we have multiple customers who need to go in. Beyond CMC, there are customers who are ITAR regulated. There are things, what we have done is we have taken a SOC 2 plus, which is under the NIST 800, 171 and 53 in the mid-level. So it gives an assurance that we are compliant to the controls which is there, 110 controls, and plus the 53 controls are there. That gives a larger assurance towards the customers. Oh, these guys are really into that level. So that helps us not only from US perspective, even at the global perspective, like when I talked about IRAP or any other, this one, they feel that, okay, these guys are really onto that side.
Yeah. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Mike, we have dual role today. Dual role. First as moderator, second as CEO. Yeah. So you please now come up as CEO. All right, I think we are getting into the last but important session, which is SOC SOC. That is SOC and not Security Operating Center. This is SOC, which is Service Organizations Controls. So let me invite my colleague, who is vertical head for this function, which is Ricardo Pardo. He has come from US, like we had few others. And post that, the moderator will be Saurabh Wagle, who has been working with you, those who are in touch with us for SOC in India or APAC or Middle East. Saurabh is my expert, local expert, but of course his boss is Ricardo. Nothing moves without his approval. Come, Ricardo.
Thank you, sir.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. I think everybody wants to go home, start packing, get going, have lunch. So this is the final session, right? As we finish up, I want to do two things, right? I want to set everybody up for a little bit of fear, put a little bit of fear into you, but then give you a little bit of optimism as well, right? So the fear here is, and what the main purpose of the presentation. Yep. Yep. Here it is. So the main session here is really responding to managing third-party providers, subservice organizations. One of the things that has been critical within our space has been supply chain attacks, right? So with breaches to third-party providers or through third-party providers, we look at things like Target. And what happened with Target, this was 12 years ago, back then, they had a settlement cost of $18.5 million. That's outside of any additional cost, right? Forensic services, loss of business, that number just skyrockets, right? And so if you're in the supply chain, if you were part of that breach, you're responsible for at least part of it, right? How much is that part? Can you afford that part? SolarWinds. SolarWinds had an attack that created a cost of only forensic services equal to 11% revenue in just forensic services, okay? So add that to settlement costs, for example, for Target, you add this, you start looking at the numbers and you start seeing what is your cost in this, right? You look at Toyota. Toyota had an attack, same way. They had a subservice provider that was attacked. That created them, or that forced them, to shut down services for 30 days, okay? All services for Toyota. That was equal to about, what was it? 5% of EBITDA for the year, okay? Imagine that number. And again, what I'm trying to do is create here for you, what is your cost? What is your impact? Okay? So what this means for your organization. Today we're relying more and more on third parties. We're relying more and more on subservice organizations, or we are the subservice organizations, right? So how does that impact you? We're using that through cloud service providers. We're using it as infrastructure. We're using API integrations. All those qualify as third-party providers into your environment or your ecosystem. And when I was doing the research, there was two big things that I got out of this, right? Over 50%, more than half of the companies responded, said that they had some kind of breach either for them directly or through one of their supply chains. Rob Wagel from my team as the moderator for our panel.
Hello, yes. Thank you, Ricardo, for this wonderful presentation. So let me invite the panel members. So Mr. JP Gagnon is here. Welcome, Mr. JP. He is CEO of Payment Hub, Cambodia. So he has more than 25 years of experience in banking, fintech industry, and he has been speaker at various international conferences like Singapore Fintech Festival, Point Zero Forum. Thank you, JP. I would like to invite another panel member, Mr. Rajkumar. Welcome. Mr. Rajkumar is Manager InfoSec and Governance of KNet. So KNet is Kuwait's leading payment gateway provider. Rajkumar is having more than 15 years of experience in banking and finance sector. Our third panel member, Mr. Sandeep Ganguly. Welcome, Mr. Sandeep. So he's Global Head of Information Security for TCS Enterprise Cognitive Operations Unit. He has more than 22 years of experience in domains like information security, IT consultancy, and he's Vice President and regular faculty of ISACA Kolkata chapter. Okay. Welcome, Sandeep. And our last panel member is Priscilla Fernando. So Priscilla is currently CISO and Project Manager of Car Technology. She has more than 15 years of experience in IT industry. Welcome, Priscilla. Hello. Yes. So thank you all panel members for joining this session. So we have got perfect balance, 2 from IT industry and 2 from banking industry. So my first question is, considering the current global complex environment, so what are the dependency on the third parties? We can start from the Mr. JP and then Mr. Rajkumar.
Okay, so I just want to be kind of objective and look at the business side of third party and also the risk side of third party. So I was just doing a bit of calculation on the business side to make everybody smile. Recently in Cambodia, an MFI was sold. So when you look at their turnover versus the turnover of Revolut, Revolut is valued at 20 times turnover when this FI was sold at 1.5 times turnover. If you go on the profit side, Revolut was sold 105 times when this FI was sold 20 times. So from a business perspective, I think third party is unavoidable. Banks need to reinvent themselves, and they see third party fintech as an accelerator to bring innovation, to shortcut the time it takes to innovate. So that's from the business side. From a risk side, I just want to remind some of Log4j that happened in 2021. There's not one bank that had discovered Log4j. It was a third party, Alibaba Cloud, that discovered Log4j. So obviously, needless to say, we rely on third party to make us better and to allow us to venture into new technologies such as AI, machine learning models, and so on. So that's my answer. So unavoidable. Some banks will become more of a utility. They will rely at some fintech to be in the front end to acquire customer faster. But you need to balance this out. That's the challenging part.
Great question, Saurabh. So let's face it, actually, third-party dependency is part of doing business for the organization, starting from cloud security providers, cybersecurity specialists, or be it payroll services. I think organizations are outsourcing more than ever. Okay. And it makes sense because with this, the organization gets access to expertise, efficiency, and scalability as well. But having said that, with these benefits come with a lot of risk associated. So when it comes to third party, when you depend on them, you trust them with your data, customer, and at some stage, even the reputation, right? So when you do that, the problem here is the organization doesn't have any visibility on the third party when it comes to their controls, their process, and how they mitigate their risk, correct? So this is why we say that the relationship has to be managed beyond just signing a contract and hoping for the best. And how are we going to tackle this issue? So this is where SOC 1, SOC 2, SOC 3 reports come into play. They're very handy. The reason being is all the controls of the third party is documented in these reports. But then, is that all? Not really, because from the organization end as well, there has to be some kind of a due diligence that needs to be done in terms of reviewing the reports, checking what controls are required, are they matching with the current threat landscape, and so on. And it's not a one-time task. It is going to be a continuous task because the risk is changing, the business is developing, there are new vulnerabilities that are popping up every day. So therefore, there has to be a continuous monitoring. And to cope up with this, I think these days the companies are deploying smarter AI tools to have a continuous monitoring. And looking ahead, I think third-party management ecosystem is going to be more complex. And to sum up, I would say that third-party dependency is going to be complex, but with the right management approach, I think it's all worth it.
Thanks, Raj, for this elaborate answer. So, same questions from IT industry perspective. What is third-party risk management for you, Mr. Sandeep? And for organization like TCS, a large IT conglomerate, how do you tackle it?
Before going into third-party risk management, let's see why do we need a third party in your organization. So I will not focus only on the providers like IT service providers. Karan talked about Log4j. Can we all forget what happened with CrowdStrike? The debacle that happened in the year 2024, July 2024, the debacle. So it is not only the IT service providers who provide the services, but then we are also talking about the housekeeping staff that work with us, the guys who manage our IT assets. So they are also third parties. So can we eliminate third party from our environment? Answer is no. We need third parties because there are certain activities which we cannot do and which we also don't want to do. So this is where we engage the third parties. But then when we engage the third parties, we also have to realize that there is a lot of risk associated with third parties getting into our ecosystem. So what are these risks? The risks are related to when we engage the third party, there are financial losses also which are there. There are penalty implications. So if we engage a third party where we are storing the data of the maybe our customers in the third party cloud, if there is a breach, what happens? The biggest impact is the financial impact. Also there is a reputational impact. I lose the business. My customers don't trust me. So that is why third parties are critical part of our infrastructure, our ecosystem, but then we need to know how we can manage the third party. That is where organizations, I would not say only TCS. So every organization who engages a third party has to do a proper due diligence before engaging a third party. And as part of due diligence, they have to look at what are the risks associated with giving the services to third party. So based on that risk, the controls have to be defined and the controls have to be monitored accordingly.
Thanks. And Priscilla, your point of view?
Yeah. So to contribute to his point, like we are not as big as a TCS, but we are a growing company and we have about 2,500 and we have delivered 3,000 projects all over the world. Across 15 countries, we have our car technologies. So on this basis, like we think that SOC type of compliances like SOC 2 and SOC 1 are very important because we deal with multiple industries, you know, oil and manufacturing, banking, healthcare, retail. So as he said, third party is unavoidable and it is like evitable that it is more important for the business and as well as, you know, to the growth of the company. So we have to be very aware that we study their system and we have to make sure that our data is secured in our side and also from their side because the breach can happen to them as well, which will indirectly impact the other customers which is involved with us. So in that case, like taking certifications like SOC 2 will help us to increase our standard and also like, you know, we can decide what controls we can bring in depending on the diversified customers which we are handling And then we can decide on how we are going to project ourselves as a company to the world. So we want to have a win-win situation. So using this report, we can grow our company and we can give an exposure and we can say that we are a trustable partner and with these all the 5 clauses which we have in SOC 2. So we feel that, personally I feel as a CISO in Cartech, after engaging with Controlcase for many other certifications like GDPR, ISO along with SOC 2, we feel like we are getting more bid projects into the company, even with the LOEs, whatever we have signed. So we feel prestigious to be collaborated with Controlcase, and thanks for the opportunity.
Thanks, Priscilla. So in your point, Mr. JP, you mentioned the fact that this third-party risk management, it is an essential part of the risk management strategy. So what are the effective ways to integrate third-party management into risk assessment?
One thing we did at the past bank I was working is we put in our RCSA the business owner. So when the business owner carries the risk with them, their approach to risk change quite a bit, quite dramatically. But the problem is it can stall an organization. So again, you need to find the right balance. Doing that type of things through a spreadsheet is very inefficient. So you need to leverage technology so you can achieve that balance and you can monitor this. Another place where we worked a lot is on ITSM, where we put our contract and key clauses. So we work a lot with legal to standardize our clauses so our vendor knew what to happen. But what I find that we were lacking a lot is the monitoring of those principles. And you're not equipped to monitor those things. So you only take care of it if, pardon my French, shit happens, right? So this is not the right way. So to me, we need to really look at those things. And I think from a contract perspective, you need to motivate your third party. So if they perform well, you should reward them maybe with higher margins. But if they don't perform well, you can penalize them. But exercising that penalty clause can be very difficult.
Thank you. So, Mr. Sandeep, you mentioned about the due diligence, be it at the time of onboarding and as part of the continuous engagement. So, most of the times to rely on third party, like just like SOC, there are other IT certifications or attestations which are obtained. So, can company rely just on those IT certifications, or there are any other additional factors to be considered for assurance?
See, again, in this context, I would say that whenever we engage a third party, monitoring of the services of third party is very, very important. It is not only for the organization, but then internationally also, there are different standards which are there. If you look into SSAE 16, 2017 SSAE 16 was changed to SSAE 18, and then there was a focus on sub-service provider. So you also monitor the services of the third party. That is where the realization has come. If you look at ISO, Control 5.2.2, 5.22, that also talks about your sub-service providers and the risk associated with third parties. So if you look at the all standards, whatever the standards are there, every standard talks about some risk management part when it comes to third party. Now there are different certifications available, ISO is there, other certifications are there, but then when I talk about SOC, the reports are very comprehensive, very detailed. So the best part of any organization would be that you go and check what is the third party doing. But can we do it? Do we have the bandwidth? And do we want to do that? Whether we have the expertise or not. We may not have. So it is always better that we rely on a third party service provider who does this kind of certifications, experts, and then look at the SOC 1 and SOC 2 report and then analyze whether there is a risk or not. And whatever is the output of these reports, factor that into your risk management framework of the organization. So to give an example, say for example, SOC 1. If I were to talk about my organization, we support BPS also. Now for BPS industry, we do payment processing. So when you do payment processing or payroll processing, there are some key factors which are there. What is the input to the payroll system? What is the output to the payroll system? then there are some legal implications like how is the tax calculated. So when we look at the SOC report, then we get a very good idea. Now, if I look into an IT industry or an ITI setup, a SOC 2 report can help us a lot. Say, for example, I store data in the cloud. So I have taken the services of a third party and storing the data of my customers in the third party cloud. Now I can look at a SOC 2 report and see whether encryption is there, end-to-end encryption is there or not. How is the data being stored? Now from a regulatory point of view, whether if the customer is European customer, whether GDPR compliance is there or not. So all these things are available in a SOC 2 and SOC 1 reports as per the applicability, which will give the organizations a very good idea about what are the risks in the organization and the services which the third party is providing. And then you can customize your setup and work accordingly.
Thanks. So as of now, we were discussing on the third parties that we rely on. Now talking about the other side of the coin, when we become third party for someone, for our customers, when we are handling our customers' processes, then what kind of factors that we have to look into? So Ricardo, you please elaborate, then I will pass on to the panel members.
Yeah. So when we look at some of the challenges that we've seen, right? One of them is obviously working first through us, but that gives us a differentiator. What sets us apart from the competition is that you're not only working with a CPA as any other firm would, that's really more of a controls expert and financial expert. You're working with a security expert as well. So you have best of both worlds kind of in our value proposition, right? That kind of sets us apart and alleviates one of the big challenges that many of the firms that we work with have.
And Mr. Raj, so we are in the process of getting attested for Kenneth. So can you please share your experience on SOC 2 audit journey?
Sure. So my experience with SOC 2 is that it's all about building trust with our external stakeholders, prospects, and customers. And it's basically focused on the key principles, privacy, security, and availability. And what distinguishes SOC 2 from other certification is like, unlike other ISO certifications, which has a rigid framework, SOC 2 is more flexible, and the controls can be tailored and designed as per your business. And second thing, what it sets apart is the audience, where the customers are the who receives the reports, and it documents how the risks are managed, and I think that's the best part of SOC 2.
Thanks. Last question, Mr. JP. So what do you feel? What is the advantage of having company SOC 2, SOC 1 or SOC 2 attested? And what are the competitive benefit or add-on benefit that the company possesses?
Well, I think when you collaborate with a fintech or a partner, it allows you to fast-track the onboarding of that supplier. But I think if you rely on SOC 2 certification, many vendors won't have it. So it leaves a great opportunity to participate, the bank and the fintech, to bring them to compliance and to find benefits for them to reach that compliance. Because ultimately, often it's a bit ironic that the bank is not SOC 2 certified, but demand from the vendor to be SOC 2 certified. So I think, again, you need to find the balance, but the cooperation should be the way you approach it. The good thing is there's no guessing work, right? So it should allow people to know objectively where they stand, and it will make the third party more resilient if you're dealing with a smaller one. With the big one, it levels the playing field, and it can be even in your RFP technical criteria where you put more value to it. So I think it's a very good thing, in my opinion.
Okay, and Priscilla, same question. So what do you feel having, what is the advantage of having SOC attestation?
As I told you earlier, like we are very new to the compliance, the other ISOs and GDPR, but so SOC is entirely different comparing to the other compliance certifications because we can decide the controls as someone told, and we just decide what to show to the customers. And also like we are filling our gaps in having the discussion with your team. So we are just upgrading our standard itself as a company. So we feel like, more confident in acquiring a SOC 2 report, and even some of our clients, we also deliver some products with us like K-Turn and K-Hub, which are in-house products. So we are just bringing the product also into the SOC 2 report. So some of the clients are particularly asking for this report to give us the business. So we are looking forward to achieve it in the April. Thank you.
So with this, we are going to end this session. And as it was mentioned by some of the panel members, this is kind of most flexible audit attestation. Okay, and it can be combined with the other attestation as well, as Ricardo mentioned on SOC 2 Plus. Okay, so I would like to invite Suresh sir and Mike to felicitate the panel members. Thank you. Thank you. Hello. So I request Mike to please come up and hand over the mementos to the distinguished panel members. Deepika, please come up. Yeah, the first one is Rajkumar. In Hindi, Rajkumar means prince. It will be, I can't call Queen Priscilla after the prince. My, not by age, by experience, oldest friend and customer, Sandeep.
Thank you, sir.
Finally, with gratitude,
Thank you very much
JP, I
again.
call JP is JP, and it's not Justice of Peace, it's JP, who is in the 4th organization since I've been working with him, and I'm with him in every organization. With that, I think, may I request Mike to give a concluding session together with other SLT members present. And after that, I think I'll be only having a short 2 minutes vote of thanks, and then the lunch is waiting. Okay?
Good job, man. Yeah, thank you, thank you, thank you.
On behalf of the Controlcase senior leadership team, we have Josh, our newest member, Shamala, Suresh, our most distinguished member, president, and Satya, our COO. I want to thank all of you for coming. Every year, I am struck by how lucky we are that you lend your expertise and experience to these sessions. The panel sessions are a great learning environment for Controlcase, as well as your colleagues out there in the audience. Thank you for traveling and giving us your time. It's greatly appreciated. I can't wait to see you next year, and I can't wait to figure out what wonderful location Suresh is going to select for us all next year. Thank you all. Safe travels.
Thank you, Mike, and thank you, Josh, Shamla, Satya. But big thank you to all my clients, because as I always speak out, for me, it is clients and colleagues above Controlcase, because Controlcase is two C's, and this is with the two pillars, which is clients and colleagues. So Controlcase without clients and colleagues is nothing. With you people being there, it's everything, and that's how we have grown all the time. So at this point, I must thank you all from coming from 22 countries, traveling several hours, and being here. And this time in much larger attendance, and also, I would say, better attendance in sessions. Sometime in some of the sessions, we find people miss out, but I found this time, and both the days, attendance is above normal, not only from Controlcase point of view, because I attend other conferences which are much more bigger, but I found very, very satisfied. So thank you so much. My grateful thanks to the speakers, and you heard them. I think they had wealth of knowledge. The purpose of bringing them here is not to listen to them once, to keep networking with them, so that if you need anything special, extraordinary, you should talk to them. And in these speakers, apart from 3 excellent speakers, I had all the vertical heads of my group except 2. Eric, because of some health reason, he was online, and Pramod, who's one of our very senior vertical head, he's in US, he's occupied with some of those clients' agencies, and like I said, for us, colleagues and clients are important. He gave priority to clients over colleagues in that situation. So I will convey my grateful thanks to him personally. I would like to sincerely thank Ideator and Shamsher. I think I was not sure whether such a large gathering of senior level executives all around, and coming anytime, going anytime, and then having dinner on the yacht, and having this arrangement that when I need a group photo, it's there. When I need music, it's there. It's not common. And you know, we are not a large organization. We will be one day, surely, with your support. But we are not large. So at the moment, it looked like I was one of the big 4 when I was having this function. And thank you, Shamsher. Your contribution is very high. I would like to also convey thanks to hotel management through Shamsher, that they tried to accommodate people when they came early and when they are leaving late. And their hospitality all around, all through, has been great. And once again, it's my colleagues. I depend on them, and particularly Satya and Ranjita. Satya on the technical side, Ranjita on everything for this conference. But nothing is stronger than the team. It's all the teamwork. And they had a team of people, and I won't like to mention few names because I'm always worried about if I miss out anyone. It does more damage than calling 6 names. And that doesn't help me. So I will never speak out the names except the leaders. And the leaders were Satya and Ranjita. And Ranjita, please get up. Everybody knows you. But I would like to say thank you so much. Once again, we have put a QR code for feedback form. So my request is please do that. And that has something related to what Mike mentioned. We'll see you next year, we don't know where. So I repeat, we'll see you somewhere, but we can see you the place of your choice if you become partner in sponsorship. whether it is, even if you put that Apex should be held in Birmingham. Birmingham. Yeah, what is it? Birmingham? Alabama. So that we have in Birmingham, Alabama, which is the US, and then you will see our managing partner of our PE to be there, but he doesn't come out of, no, he comes out of it. No, I'm just joking. But in APAC and Middle East and Africa, which is the territory, normally we work together. So please, we'll decide together. One will come out of this QR code, but then after that, I'm going to touch base with some of you. And those whose profitability has gone up because of our contribution, maybe they'll contribute a little after that. Thank you so much.
Well done. Safe travels, everyone.
Thank you.
Sorry, one last thing. You know, as the age grows, you forget few things. And one of the things which is most prestigious I forgot was the memento. In fact, I asked for that Ranjita should be given a memento for her very large contribution. So Ranjita, please come in. Please come in. I had for Satya also, but he refused. Satya? I'm saying I had this memento for Satya also, but he refused. I don't know why. He doesn't want to be recognized alone, like you saw him. Yeah. As if that's not my job. Okay. Ranjita, please come. Yeah. Where is So, thank you all. And like anything in the life, all good things end and the next beginning starts. So let's forget the ending. Let's start working for the beginning of next event. And let's all meet together. Wish you all the best. And I cannot express how happy I am. Thank you so much.
Thank you.